Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rollie, and I'm excited to be here with Chatting with Wisdom. So Chatting with Wisdom is all about being able to connect with inspiring women who share their topic, share their passion with us in these weekly episodes. And I'm super excited to have those opportunities. And today we're going to be talking about intuition, how to hear, trust, and follow. But I wanted to touch base as well and be able to share that Loving Acceptance of Yourself workshop. It's a free 8-day workshop that starts on September 7th that is being offered. And I will put the link here in the comments. And so would love to have you guys come and join us. So this is the registration link. I'm going to be doing it into my private Facebook group and looking forward to connecting with all the women that we're going to be talking about with that. But in the meantime, we're going to be talking more about intuition. And so for all of you who know me, know that intuition is key to most of the things that I do and how it is that I function. So I get really super passionate. So we will try to keep this conversation to 30 minutes, but that might be a little bit challenging, but we will definitely try and do that. So I'm going to introduce to you Allison. So Allison Sutter is an author, teacher, and spiritual mentor. Her work blends multiple perspectives, making challenging self-help concepts easy to understand and apply. Allison's online courses explore the nature and the reality, including topics such as visualization, cultivating an abundance mindset, and intuition. Her signature course is called Accelerate Your Mojo, 7 Simple Steps to Ignite Intuition, Shake Off Fear, and Unleash the Real You. A masterful blend of logic and spirituality. Accelerate Your Mojo walks through a series of steps uniquely designed to spark intuition, transform fear, and inspire your authentic self to rise up from within to be celebrated. So welcome. How are you, Allison?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
This is exciting. So, and like I said, we're going to try to keep the conversation down but one of the things that ends up happening is that sometimes we will just get going, especially when it's on a topic that I get so passionate about. So we will try and make sure that we are being mindful of the time. However, it is what it is. For anybody who watches and listens knows that this is what's one of the things that happens. So Chatting with Wisdom is on live on Facebook and on YouTube. But you can now listen to it on podcasting sites such as Spotify and Apple. Yay! Super exciting. So after this episode, then the girls will get that uploaded and we will have access to that as well. So tell me a little bit more about how did you get started with intuition? How did you get started with connecting with that intuition?
Yeah. So originally I started, ultimately what was sort of like the tipping point was I was working with someone else, a personal development coach who was pretty famous. And what I discovered was there was no talk about intuitive guidance, right? It was all about, there's sort of a standardized approach. And there's a lot of standardization that happens in personal development. But I felt it was sort of standard because what happened is it wasn't working for me and there was no answer. And I thought, well, that's not right because there's always an answer, right? Like you can always find a solution. You just have to look from a different perspective. So I broke away from that experience and I said, well, what do I want to do? What I want to do is listen to my intuition. This is what I need to foster within myself. I need to learn to transform fear, and I need to learn to love my authentic self, to be my authentic self. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to do, and intuition being one of them. I had to. So for me, I investigated the topic by starting to write courses. I needed to listen to what the solution was for me and find it. And I truly believe that intuition is everyone's independent guru. Like. Nobody has your answers, not an outside coach, not the health practitioner, not your mother. They all have their own perspective and their own guidance system. You have yours. And intuition, because in my perspective, it's my conversation with my higher self. That's how I define it. Everyone has to define it for themselves. What is it for you, But because it's my conversation with my higher self, it's got my back. It knows exactly what I'm resistant to, what I'm going to allow, what my beliefs are, so it can give me information in a way that's going to lead me in the direction that I want to go in every topic. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I realized, you know what, this is exact opposite of where I started in standardized education. I started out in elementary school telling people what to do, right? And then I realized, oh my God, we can't, like, we're so indoctrinated into this standardization that we think there's the right answer. It's tough for us to trust our own inner guidance. So I got into it.
And it really is. And I like the way that you actually said it's tough to understand that inner guidance. So like my background is working with people through psychotherapy type style work. And that has been like, that's where I started.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that was really interesting is that I had a co-op student that was working with me. And one of the things that she had said is she had come into a session with me. And so we were having this session. And when we went in, so prior to the session, it's like, okay, so review of last week's session. And what is it that we were like, what was the goal, what we were going to be doing and how we were going to be moving things through. And so I went into the session with this co-op student. And so sat with the client and went through the regular session, but we took a complete different flip as to that's not what we had planned or intended on having conversations about. And so I shifted the conversation from where we thought that we were going to go to something completely different. Mm-hmm. So then when we were done, the co-op student said, okay, so like this is what had happened. And traditionally, and it's again, like all those static normal things that we're supposed to do when we're having a session. So like we have all these standards of things that we're doing. And so then she said, but you kind of changed the narrative and things just kind of went in a completely different way. And the person ended up in that particular moment ended up completely we had a full breakthrough at that particular moment in that particular session, right? So like that was the breakthrough. Yeah. But the student was like, well, how did you know? How did you know that that's what it is that you were supposed to be talking about? Why did you change? And it was like, well, because again, coming from a standard of practice is like, well, I was watching body language and something was shifting and like whatever it was. And I was kind of picking up on that, but it turned out, and the student said like, this person's body did not move. Nothing changed. Everything was the exact same. Like, I don't know what it is that you were seeing, but that's not what it is that's happening. And so then we continued with the rest of the sessions, like over the course of however long that they were there. And for whatever reason, we don't typically have two students at once. But for whatever reason, I had two students that were shadowing for about a week or so. So the same student and another student. And so then the two girls came in and they were both sitting in the session, and it was a different client. The client was okay with it happening, but again, that same thing happened where it's like, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is what we're going to be doing. This is where we're going to kind of go with it. But it's always depending on what else is happening in people's lives. Mm-hmm. But it was like kind of this is where we've been kind of like this is the theme that we've been kind of going with. But then we took another complete separate direction, and this time, the two girls started talking to each other and they're like, okay, yeah, there's definitely nothing to do with body language. Nothing had changed and shifted. Yeah. So again, we had the conversation and they asked me again. And I said, well, I was watching the body language. And they're like, Rollie, you are insane. Like there is absolutely no way that there was any body language change. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just my experience. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. It wasn't. And at that point, I didn't know that I was using my intuition. At that point, I had no idea because that's not what we were clinically taught, right? We weren't clinically taught, right? So we weren't clinically taught to use our intuition. And so it wasn't until I started and learning about tapping into intuition that it was like, and then all these moments of like ahas come back and went like, oh, that's what was going on with that client. Oh, that's what was going on with that client. I was listening to my intuition, to my gut. It was also my perspective based on the scenario, like you said, but it was also but based on listening to my own intuition of, okay, well, this is where we need to go and this is direction that we need to go, then it took us to where we need to go with it, right? So, and then so that leads right to the title of your talk is how to hear, trust, and follow. And it's just, we just need to be able to listen to those messages, right? So how do you hear those messages?
Well, the first thing I always start with is, what is your definition of intuition? So back in February, I did a whole summit. I had 18 women come on that were guided and trusted intuition, and they were helping me teach this class. So one of the things I realized is that a person has to define what intuition is to them, right? What is it to you? Is it something that only comes up in the dark alley when I need to run for safety? Or is it a functional tool that I could use at work, right? Like, what is your definition of intuition? You can even go farther into, the definition like I have it. To me, I'm a very not religious, but spiritually oriented person. So I view this as the conversation with the part of me that is non-physical, because the part of me that's non-physical has access to all that is. It has all the information that ever was and will be. So it's got a great database, frankly.
Yeah.
So the person has to start with how are you defining this? Because your beliefs are governed around your experience is governed around your beliefs, right? So if you don't think you're intuitive, I polled the people that were coming to the summit, and it was things like, I don't trust myself. I doubt it. I can't hear it. Those are your definitions. Words are magical. If you see yourself writing something, that's what you believe, right? You're writing it because you believe you don't have the capability. Well, you do. So you have to start playing with it, question that. Is that really true? Is it true that I'm not intuitive? Or maybe I am, and I just haven't fully realized it yet, right? You have to start in the playground of questioning your own beliefs about yourself. Start there, right? And then you sort of tiptoe into, well, how does intuition come through for me? Because you're allowing it to come through in the ways that you believe it's supposed to come through. There's a lot of talk about gut feeling or tinglies or goosies, right? Yeah. So a lot of people have gut feelings and goosies, but they don't have much more than that because there aren't many conversations about how it comes through beyond that. It can come through in a thought. A thought can be intuitively guided, right? You had thoughts about, well, maybe do this and maybe do that. It's so subtle and so much in your own voice that you don't even recognize it, right? It's sort of like this, oh, that's a nice thought. Why don't I do that? And no one goes, oh, that was intuitive. Well, it was, if you define it that way. So that's you got to kind of take a soft approach to it, a gentle approach, start questioning how you're defining it for yourself. And again, if you say to yourself, I'm not intuitive, there's your definition. Your definition is I'm not intuitive. Question it,
Yep.
Maybe that's not true. Maybe I am. Maybe I get it in a way that nobody else has ever gotten it before. Maybe it comes through in the clairs for me. Maybe it's a voice in my head or an idea in my imagination. We give credence to writers, right? Writers, we say, have intuitive guidance. We let writers have validity around the concept that they can have intuitive guidance about a story, and we don't need to know where it comes from. It's just the imagination. Mm-hmm. We need to give more credence to this concept that everyone is intuitive, because everyone, in my opinion, personal perspective here, we are souls having an experience here. So because we all are souls, we all come equipped with the ability to connect with this, we're tethered to all the information that ever was and will be, and you can access it. You can. Yep. So.
And one of the things that I like is that you were talking about like the clairs. And so for people that don't know what you're referring to, do you want to share a little bit more about what you were referring to in terms of the clairs?
Well, like clairsentience is just it's sentience. It's knowledge that you just know. Clairvoyance, it comes through in a vision in your head. Clairaudience could be sort of an auditory sound. Usually it's in your own voice, but it's not actually you. It's like a knowledge that comes through. Most people have those experiences. They just don't connect the dots and put a definition on it. They don't consider themselves to be clairvoyant or clairaudient, right? Because maybe that's too woo-woo for them. You don't have to define it. You don't have to define it that way. Like, if you're not excited about that, pitch it. Let's do it another way.
I love that. So I always tell people all the time, take what you need and leave the rest. So if it's not yours, then don't use it.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, it's coming through you. I guarantee you. People talk about mother's intuition, right? They legitimize the fact that a mother has an intuitive guidance system. Everyone does. So it's coming through in the ways that you're allowing it to come through. The trust part comes in through experiential learning. Experiential learning is just being in the act of the experience, having an awareness, having an idea of what's going on, and connecting it back to other things. When you're in school and you go to science class and you do a science experiment, that's experiential learning. You're learning through the experience. Most people don't consider their life experiential learning, but it is. you're experiencing through your life. And so start playing it. So if this isn't interesting to somebody, then they're not going to listen any further. But if it is interesting and they're excited about it, start acknowledging that when you wake up in the morning, you have 100% opportunity to decide for yourself how intuition is flowing through you and how you're going to use it, how you want to use it. And then that's where the trust part comes in. The trust part comes in when you realize through an experience that you're having that that's actually what's happening. So you've got to legitimize it for yourself.
And and that's just kind of, and so it takes you into that second part of your topic title, is that trust.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So trusting ourselves, and a lot of us struggle with that trusting ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, because we all went to school, and at school there's one teacher who tells you what's right or wrong. So we all get indoctrinated into this concept of standardization, right? You lose trust of self when people start telling you that they know better than you. And I know this because I was a teacher. We all went to school. We all know the experience, right? We all know it. And we do that for 12 plus years where someone else has the right answer. And then all of a sudden you're thrust into life and everyone goes, now you decide for yourself. And you're like, what? What do you mean?
You want me to do what? No, I need somebody to tell me what to do.
Yeah, I don't trust myself. Well, you trust and distrust is what you actually trust in. You trust in, there's always trust in something, but usually it's trust in distrust. There's trust in fallacy within myself. That's what we're trusting in. So again, you got to just experiment every day when you wake up. There's an opportunity to begin to reveal. It's sort of, life is a revelation. It's a revelatory process, right? You have to reveal to yourself through your own awareness how it's happening. So you're probably going to start to play with it, and you'll sort of tiptoe into it. I was on a call on Clubhouse yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was an intuition room. And so the moderator was like, all right, so I'm going to pick a color, red, blue, or green, right? And you guys are going to guess. And of course, they give people, 2 minutes or a minute or two or something, they're giving all this time. And of course, I know what people are doing. They're going, oh, wait, right. No blue, no green, no purple. No, wait, they didn't even say purple. They're second guessing themselves instead of just going with their first inclination, which is probably the most accurate. So the trust comes through practice. You have to practice. The interesting part was that on this call, they did the 3 colors and then they did like 3 animals. So with the 3 colors, the person who had picked the one color actually identified that what she was looking at was something that had all 3 colors in it. Everyone was right. Everyone was right that guessed. But you wouldn't have known that, which means you would have distrusted yourself if she hadn't revealed that information.
Yeah.
Same thing with the animals. Like, she picked one animal, but then she was like, oh, wait, well, there's a cat on my bed and there's a duck over here. So everyone was right because everyone was picking up intuitively on what was in her surrounding. But had she not said that, people would have thought they were wrong.
Yeah.
So, we're looking for the right answer usually with intuition instead of the appropriate answer for us. There's a difference.
And that intuition is usually that initial response that we have, right? Is that like initial response that we have is that's typically what's right for us in that moment.
Yes.
So it's all about that particular thing. And so like when you talk about like things making sense and how these things are happening and how we are intertwined with everyone else's beliefs and everybody else's ideas and what's right and what's wrong. And so what was really interesting is that my husband and I were having a conversation just yesterday, and we have a little 6-year-old that comes around and we have her around with us a lot. And so him and I were having a conversation, and she had overheard the conversation, and she looked at us and said, well, that doesn't make sense, because we were talking about, well, this and that and the other thing. And she's like, and one of the things that when she's around with us, we always try and get her to like think for herself. What do you think is best? Like, what do you think that the answer should be, or whatever that would be right for you? And so, we were having this conversation, and it was completely out of the blue that she just stopped us and said, excuse me a second. And we said, yes. And she's like, that doesn't make sense. So like, this is right. And this is right. So like, but it doesn't make sense, like that you have to find one or the other. And I'm like, yes, this 6-year-old is actually getting it. And I'm like, yay. Right?
That's brilliant. Usually kids are not corrupted in this concept that there's only one right answer and that it has to be your answer. We indoctrinate them into about 5 years old when they go into kindergarten. One of the interesting things that I've done with my kids is around 4th grade, I disengaged with their schoolwork. I said, you're on your own. I'm not going to tell you to do homework. I am not going to ask what the teacher thought of this or that. You're going to have to self-advocate, all this stuff. Now they think it's so odd that someone else's parents tell them what to do. They're like, I don't even get that, because a lot of parents are telling their kids what to do because they do not trust them to make the right decision. And so they're corrupting their own inner guidance system, their own intuitive ability, which ultimately would lead them to be more successful if they would let their kids follow their intuitive ability, but they're so scared that they're going to make a mistake or do it wrong, right? They intervene as the authority figure and they kind of mess it up. So the kid gets to be, and I've heard from other people, and we've read articles about helicopter parenting and other things, that there's a generation of kids that now gets to college and is unable to foster creativity and think independently, which intuition is involved in. It's an independent thought process. It's a creative thought process because they haven't been given the chance. It's not that they don't have it. They've just been told that other things are more important. So,
yep. And I see that I have a kids anxiety program that I offer. And I see that even with the kids, it's like, okay, so we're going to just do, we're just going to paint today. So I want we're all going to close our eyes and we go through a meditation. And then it's like, okay, now I want you to paint whatever it is that you saw and whatever it is that you did and whatever it is. And then you see the other kids that say, well, your duck can't be purple. Well, why can't my duck be purple?
Right.
The duck was purple in my head. So why can't it be purple? Mm-hmm. And Rollie said, draw whatever it is that I wanted to draw. Mm-hmm. And my duck is purple. And so, and it's just, but you see that, right? And these are kids that are like in this particular age group are between ages of 4 and 8. And yes. They've already been like, no, you can't have, your house can't be, I don't know, majestic orange, right? Mm-hmm. Like, well, why can't it? Right? So whatever
they've
it
been
is,
told.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and there's a punishment or a reward associated with that. And who doesn't want to be rewarded? Who doesn't want to be loved by the teacher? Everyone wants that. Of course you're going to do that. It's human nature.
And it's incredible to be able to see how this actually happens and comes to play. So now that takes us into that hearing and that trust. And then, so now how do we follow it? Right. So how do we trust, like when we get to that step, like what's the next step in terms of that follow?
Well, it's part of the whole system, right? You're not going to follow it until you hear and trust it. Like there's got to be some, you can't go right to follow, because if you don't know first of all, if you don't know what your definition is, you don't know how it's coming through for you. Second of all, if you're not open at questioning, how is it coming through for me? How am I hearing it, feeling it, seeing it? Am I trusting that? Can I venture in? Can I tiptoe into this world of trust and see how it plays itself out? All of this is woven together because the follow part becomes more natural when you know how it comes through for you and you've had practice trusting it. Because to tell someone to follow their intuition in a business venture when they have never had an experience for themselves, how it's coming through for them and had practice trusting it, well, they're not going to follow it. They're going to be like, that's baloney. I'm going to go with what Mr. Guru says because he's made $10,000 last month. So I'm just going to go do what he does. It's all essentially one thing, but you're not going to follow it unless you begin to tiptoe into the land of trust. You just won't.
And like, that makes complete sense, right? So like when we actually take a step back and we listen to it, it makes complete sense. And like you said, if somebody is still watching that still doesn't believe, then they've already jumped off the call, right? They're not even listening anymore. And so, but it really is about being able to like take what you need, leave the rest. What is it that's working that Allison is doing, or what is it that Rollie's doing that works and fits within my own belief system that allows me to be able to kind of move on, right? So I do come from a religious background growing up, but I have shifted and moved away from that for some time now, because a lot of those things didn't work for me or didn't feel right for me. So I've shifted to being able to take what I need and I leave the rest. And so that it allows me to be able to like, yeah, that feels good to me and I can do that. And sometimes we do want like, and when I'm following my intuition or when I'm doing different practices or when I'm doing different things, it's all based on what's going on in my experiential life going on right now.
Yes.
Is that sometimes, yes, this is what works well for me. So being able to go and sit by the lake and being able to sit under the moonlight around by the water is definitely something that I can do easily in the middle of summer. But like, there's no way that I'm going to go sit beside that ice and freeze my butt off or go for that walk in the freezing cold, because that doesn't fit with me. So I have to find different ways of being able to do things. And so I work a lot with the seasons. So like, what is it that's working for me within that season? And so things shift for me from month to month or from season to season, depending on how I am tapping into whatever it is that's going on. Right. So,
and intuition is coming. So the other part is there's a misunderstanding about the way, in my opinion, the way intuition works. It's coming through 100%. Like it's coming through. And so it can come through, and most people allow it through in emergency situations. Like we were driving up to Michigan when I was pregnant with my youngest and the two little ones were in the backseat. My husband's driving. I'm looking down at the floor and to me at this point, a voice came through and said, look up. I looked up. He had just fallen asleep at the wheel, right? Intuitive guidance. It can come through in emergency situations, or it can come through while you're sitting peacefully relaxed at the lake. There isn't one thing you have to do in order to allow the intuition to come through. There's only what do you want to do? What is the most exciting thing that you can do? And the reason excitement is important, or any derivation of excitement, satisfaction, interest, curiosity, any of those pleasant sensations, is those pleasant sensations indicate you're in receptive mode. You're aligned with the opportunity to receive. And what are you going to receive? Ideas, inclinations. Someone's going to walk by and hand you a perfect book. It's like, follow what is exciting to you. And in that opportunity, you will find the situations that help you become more able to hear, trust, and follow how your inner guidance is coming through.
Yep. And it really is important for us to be able to just learn how to listen to the different things that we have, or that we see, or that we're hearing, like whatever it is that looks like. And so like for me, a lot of my intuition comes in things that I feel. So like it's like that hitting that in my, so like you said, that gut feeling. But sometimes it comes from like, oh, look at that, we just found a feather. Or, oh, look at that. So like when my dad passed away, for example, and I know that I've shared this before, is that when my dad passed away, like immediately after he had passed, I had gone outside and we had doves. My parents had doves that would come around all the time, and they stopped coming, and they were pairs of doves. And then they had two pairs of doves, and then they just all stopped coming around. And so, but after he died, there was one dove, and it has not returned. My mom has still yet to see it. And it was one dove that was sitting above the house. And when I went outside and I turned around and I looked at it, and went, oh, hey, little buddy, haven't seen you in a while. And it was all of a sudden, it was like, that's my dad. My dad's come to let me know that he's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So like it was just, and it was just really interesting to be able to see that. And some people may think that is woo woo. Right. But it was like, that was that intuitive, like immediately, like I said, it's like, oh, cool, there's a bird.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, cool, there's a bird we haven't seen in a while. Then all of a sudden it was like that intuition that said, hey, my dad's coming to let us know that he's okay.
Yeah. The intuition gives us permission to realize what we already know to be true.
Yeah.
Right. So it just gives us permission. And the more that you play with it, and intuition isn't going to come through by asking your best friend what she thinks or he thinks. It isn't going to be fostered by asking someone else what they think, because their perspective and their guidance system is leading them to a different outcome because of all the intricacies that are involved with their belief systems, their ideas about the way the world works and all of that. So while outside opinions are wonderful because they can give you clarity about what you think, intuition is rolled up in what is best for you to take you from where you are to where you want to be in the next, few consecutive moments of now, whether that's a year from now or next month. It's guiding you because it is rooting for you because it is you.
Yeah.
It's you in a form that is still connected to all that is.
And it's just really important for us to be able to understand for ourselves as to what it is that all that is looks like for us. Right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, your definition of what that means to you is so intimate to each person. And this podcast is not experiential learning. This podcast is what would be perceived as is like going to a classroom and listening to something. So if someone's like, well, how do I know if I'm having an experiential experience? Well, you go and you do it. You have to go out and be in the field of your own life and play with your own experiences. We can tell you what it is for us, but that doesn't necessarily translate for how it's coming through for you. So you got to detach from the concept of, this is how it's working for these ladies. That's how it's going to work for me. Because there's sort of an automatic translation that when you hear someone who you think is an expert in a field say something, you think, oh, that's how it's got to be for me. It's sort of like an automatic thing. Well, no, I want you to step back and go, that might not be how it comes through for me. It's probably not going to be how it comes through, at least not in the beginning.
And the other thing too is that when you hear somebody else and they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I want to play with that or try that or see if that works for us, is that A, B, and C might not be the right order.
Right.
So like even though that expert says like do A, B, and C, you might need to do C, B, and A.
Right.
And still use the same tool, but it might have to be shifted and adjusted so that it actually fits for you.
Right. I always want people to question, am I doing this because I think I should do this? Did I hear a podcast or did I watch a show or did I read a book? And so somehow I think that I should do it like that person's doing it. Don't do it like that. Take a step back and ask yourself, how am I supposed to move forward in investigation?
Yeah.
What feels right to me? And there's always a differential. I tell my kids with their homework, they're like, I hate it all. I'm like, all right, pick the best of the worst, right? There's a difference. You dislike one more than you dislike the other. Yeah. So find the differential. Go with the one that feels a little bit better because that's leading you. That's your intuition. It's going, this one is the path of least resistance. Go with this one. So, I know it's hard not to be influenced by what other people say, but that being said, we're telling you, go with what feels right, not what you think is right, but what feels right. Because intuition usually starts for most people with some kind of sensation because that's our most common definition, gut feeling, goosies, just a sense of knowing. So
perfect. So I've loved this conversation and definitely would love to have you come back on and so that we can chat again. But one of the things that Allison has is she has an offer that she wants to be able to share with you. So I will share it and let Allison talk about what it is.
So yes. So my signature program, I call it signature program because it was a culmination of everything I'd learned from all the courses that I wrote. It's called Accelerate Your Mojo. That means realize sooner your connection to this inner flow of well-being. So what I did is I wrote the book first, and then I created a digital course, and now I work with people one-on-one with that. But the free gift is literally just, and I say 7 steps, but really they're just 7 perspectives that you can come at from any direction. It isn't a linear progression. It's a quantum concept where you can come at these anyway. But I just took the first step right out of the digital program and said, here you go. You can have it for free. Because I want you to know how I teach and what I do. And I don't like secrets. It's not like I'm going to hide this and go like, oh, you get this, but then this is something totally different when you buy it. No. It's the same thing. It's just the first step of it. And I just give it away for free so that people can get started. So that's what that is. It's just a free, I call it intro to Accelerating Mojo, but it's literally the first step perspective in the 7 different steps so that, if someone's excited about it, and it's about asking. The first step is about asking. A lot of people ask for things. They set goals. They say, I want this. but they don't understand the nuances of asking because they don't get it. It's actually about receiving. Asking and receiving are they should be similar concepts. Most people go, I want this goal, I want this thing, I want this to happen. And then they sit back and they go, but I don't actually believe it's going to happen. So you got to kind of play with the inner world a little bit.
And it's just really interesting when we do that, right? So like, it's interesting when we take a look at things from that different angle or that different perspective, or because, and even if we've been in a situation before, is even taking a step back and saying, okay, so just a minute, like, am I supposed to do the exact same thing that I did yesterday, or am I supposed to do something different? Is it supposed to be shifted a little bit differently, right? So it's about being able to tap into that and having that understanding of what it is that's happening for us. And so, yeah, it's really great for us to be able to have that that insight that allows us to be able to see from a different perspective, a different, like, using that same word, perspective.
Yes.
Right? So it's about having.
It's very logical. It's very dependable. It's like all those things that it gives you a different perspective. So, yeah.
So this is great. And so for those of you who are catching the replay, hashtag replay, let us know that you have been on. And I know that typically this is on a Wednesday, so people are not necessarily on right now at lunchtime, especially with kids having gone back to school in our region. And so, but share this out, let people know more about this. We'd love to be able to have more, and jump in on the conversation. Even though this is a replay, we'd love to be able to have your perspective on these ideas and what it is that's going on. So, so thanks again, everybody, and looking forward to chatting with you guys next week. Next week, we are on Thursday again. Again, we needed to have another shift. And so we're going to be on Thursday again next week. And I'm not sure, I can't remember what the time was actually. Maybe I can go and check. So we're still going to be 10 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday, but it's going to be Thursday instead of Wednesday again next week. So
come to Instagram and find me on Instagram, because that's where I'm most active. And that's where I'd share a bunch of stuff. So come follow me on Instagram too, and we'll get to know each other there.
Perfect. So thanks again, Allison, and looking forward to connecting with everyone else again, and we will chat soon. Bye for now.